Being an established employee at a big high-tech company has a lot of upside. You know how to do the work, you're familiar with the environment, you know how to get things done at the company. Also, when it comes time for your annual review, everybody already knows you, so that makes it a lot easier for your manager to get you the rewards that you deserve, whether those are big rewards or little rewards. There won't be as many questions about who is this person and do they really deserve this. Given all these advantages, why would you ever want to leave a company that you're at? Is there any reason? There are lots of reasons why it makes sense to look at moving, at least occasionally. Hi, my name is John L. Miller and I'm the Deliberate Engineer. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the sorts of things you should consider when you're going to quit a job, how you know when it's really time to leave. I've been working in high tech for the last 30 years at companies like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Oracle, and even startups and a few other places as well. I've had 15 distinct positions over the last 30 years, and the question I had to ask for every one of those transitions was, is it a good time for me to leave? Does it make sense for me to leave? What I'm going to do in this video is tell you a bit about my thought process and the sorts of things you should think about when trying to determine if it's time to move on from your current job. Even if you're content in your current job, it still makes a lot of sense to poke your head up at least once a year and take a look and see what else is out there. Ultimately, you're the person who's responsible for your career and your success. If you have a great boss, they might look out for you sometimes, but it's really not something you can count on anybody except yourself to do. Not your peers who are encouraging you to do this or that, not your boss who's also responsible for getting you to be productive, but you. You know best what you need out of your career, and you're the person who's responsible for making it happen. When I look at changing careers, I'm usually in one of three buckets. The first bucket is I'm just doing a career check. In other words, I'm pretty happy at my job. I like what I'm doing, but I want to make sure that it's still the right place for me. So I poke my head up, I take a look around, do some interviews, and if it still looks like the best place, great. If not, well then it may be time to move on. The second situation that I've been in when I've been starting to think about moving along is when things just aren't working out for me in the current team. Maybe it's not a good fit technology-wise or in terms of what I'm producing and what I enjoy producing. Maybe it's problems with coworkers or my boss that can't be fixed through any easy mechanism. There could be 100 different reasons why I'm not happy at a current job. But the second reason that I would look at quitting is if there's something at this job that makes me unhappy. The third set of reasons why I would take a look at leaving a company is actually something that I think is particular to big high tech, and that is that you're being attracted to something that looks more interesting. It's really nice being in an industry where they always need people because that means there's always opportunities to do something different. So the third case can be when I'm being attracted to go work on something else, whether that's an exciting new technology or recruiters who are banging on the door saying, hey, there's this great opportunity over here. Let's take a look at each of these in a little more detail. A generation ago, a career looked very different than it does today. Lifetime employment was something that you would see more frequently in professional fields. People would get a job, they would stay at the company for 20 or 30 or 40 years, collect their golden watch, and then retire on a pension. Or they would have some other retirement plan. But the idea was there was a career path and it made a lot of sense to stay at the same place. Fast forward to now and that's just not the case anymore. A more typical duration for somebody to stay at a high-tech company is on average about 4.5 years. Now if you take a look, it does vary a bit by age. The youngest people have much shorter tenure at the companies, and the people who've stayed at companies, say more than 10 years, they tend to be older people who maybe have this sort of older way of looking at the jobs. But whatever it is, it just doesn't necessarily make sense anymore to stay at a company for a long time. You really need to be thinking that some amount of mobility is needed and in fact healthy for your career. There can actually be some significant downside these days to staying in the same career. First, compensation can lag dramatically even if you're a good performer. Something that I've seen happening over the last 30 years is there's such demand for new employees in the big high-tech companies that salaries keep going up and up and up. In fact, the salaries go up faster for the new hires than they do for the existing good to great employees. So you can imagine what happens for somebody who's just sort of average. For example, I had a friend who was one of the strongest performers at one of the big companies I was at. He'd been there for 5 or 6 years. He was doing fantastic. He'd gotten hired in at a reasonable rate and he'd gotten steady promotions, bonuses, stock, and so on. Fast forward 6 years and we find ourselves on interview loops for candidates coming straight from college with an undergraduate degree who are getting offers that are higher than what my friend was making after 5 or 6 years at the company. There's no question the relative value of these two people. He was a proven star performer, and here we're talking about a new hire coming in and making the same amount as him. This is something that happens pretty frequently at companies. You really need to keep an eye and make sure that your compensation is in line with what you have to offer the company. The second thing that can happen if you stay in a single position at a company for too long is you can become brittle. Now, in some ways, that experience in the group is a good thing. You become an expert on the component that you're working on. You always have the answers when people come to ask things, but that has some negative side effects. First and foremost, you spend all your time specializing in one area. When it comes time for you to work on something else, you're going to have problems giving up that knowledge and learning the new things that are required to succeed. Second, when other people want to contribute to that area, you already know everything, so you tend to be given the work to do. What that means is you become a single point of failure for the component. Nobody else knows how it works. And finally, it can also lead to a certain amount of possessiveness over the area. So all this brittleness is bad from the company's perspective, and it's bad for you as an employee. So what I would say is, if you're in the same job as a programmer in high tech for too long, you should really consider moving, especially if you're not getting promoted. And that leads us to the third category of reasons why you don't necessarily want to stay in the same position for too long. Perhaps you're underappreciated. It could be that your skills and your desires are not the greatest match for what's required for your job. As a result, you get mediocre to poor performance reviews, you don't get very good compensation, you don't get positive feedback in general, and work isn't as good as it could be. This isn't always a general problem with the person who's being evaluated. In fact, it can just be a fit problem. All it can take to revitalize this sort of lagging career is moving to a new position with new people, different expectations that are more in line with the sort of things you enjoy doing. So this can be a third great reason to look at moving to a new company. One other time that can be a great time to think about moving on to a different job is right after you've been promoted. Now, I know this sounds like exactly the wrong time to go because obviously they appreciate what you're doing. But the key is they've just rewarded you for what you've been doing. The promotion is a recognition that you're acting at the next level already. What this means from your perspective is that you've just been given the reward and the acknowledgement for all the work you've been putting in the past. If you'd put in a year and then left before getting promoted, that year of goodwill would be lost and have to be reestablished at your new employer. But since you've just been promoted, it's actually the ideal time in terms of career trajectory to be able to move to a new place. In addition to these other reasons for leaving, I mentioned that you can also be attracted to leave the company. Sometimes it's a technology, a particular thing that looks so interesting you really want to go work on it. Other times recruiters are coming and contacting you, or you see an opportunity that just looks unique, too good to be true, something you absolutely can't pass up. Whatever the reason you're being attracted to leave the company, I urge you to not just look at the thing that's attracting you, but do a more general job search before you go anyplace. The reasons for this are pretty straightforward. One, you don't know that it's the best thing. It's just something that caught your eye or somebody who contacted you. You really need to go out and do your due diligence and see what else is out there waiting for you. Also, if you are interviewing at multiple places, and if the companies know you're interviewing at multiple places, it can really work out to your advantage. The reason is that when a company is talking to someone they think is only talking to them, they get to set the timeline for when things happen. They give you an offer that benefits them. It might also be great for you, but the fact is they're going to pay you the least they can while still attracting you and having a chance that you'll be happy while you stay there. If they know that you are talking to other companies, especially competitors to them, then this does a couple of things to the recruiting process. First, it speeds things up. They know that there's a timetable that they have to keep up with. The recruiter will stay on top of things and make sure that you get your interviews quickly, that the feedback and the offer come back quickly, and that they can be one of the people who are in contention for hiring you. The second thing is that since they know you're looking at competitors, they will actually consider giving you a higher offer automatically. The reason for this is pretty straightforward. If you're just talking to them, you're not doing any comparison shopping. But if you're talking to their competitors, then you have a better idea of what the market will bear, and they get a double bonus if they actually hire you, which is not only do they hire a good person into their company, but they steal somebody away from a competitor. And this is desirable to them. And the downside for them is also true. If they don't hire you, not only are you not going to be working for them producing good things, you're going to be helping their competitor kick their butt. So this motivates the company to move quickly, and to make better offers in general. If you're being attracted to work on a particular technology, I would urge you to be very careful about this. I've done this many times in my career, and it's almost never worked out for me. Typically what will happen is I'll get excited about a new opportunity. I know something about it. I have this idea in my head of what it's going to be. It might be multimedia, it could be systems programming, it could be working on games, it could be designing network protocols, any number of things. I mean, these are all real examples from my background. And what you find inevitably, especially for the things that sound the sexiest, is, hey, it turns out there's a lot of work to do that's exactly like the work you do everywhere else. And maybe the parts that make that position special, that are the thing that you attracted you, maybe they're not all that interesting after all. Maybe they're not where you thought they were. So my recommendation here is to make sure that you actually learn enough about a technology that's attracting you to be confident it's something you're going to enjoy. The best way to do this is to spend a couple months working on a side project in your spare time, something that lets you actually code in the area, get more of an understanding of how something built for this technology fits together and what work there is to do on it. That'll also make it easier for you to be able to tell whether an offer for a particular position you're being given is something that will really appeal to you. Summing things up, the first step in finding a new great job is deciding that you should leave the old one. Now, bear in mind as you make this decision, there's going to be lots of annoyances involved with switching jobs. It's not a free thing, so it's something you should do very deliberately. You might have to switch all your benefits. You'll have to move your retirement from one spot to another. You might have to change your doctor. You might need to change where you live. There's all kinds of costs associated with this. Also, if you had a bunch of vacation time built up, that vacation time is lost. If you had seniority where you'd get more weeks of vacation per year, that's lost too. These are all some of the costs that you pay when you move between jobs. Still, if it's time to leave your current company, then moving to a new one is the best thing you can do for your career. For me personally, I've jumped around maybe a little too much in my career, but I've really enjoyed all the people I met and all the things I got to do. It was great for me. It can be great for you. If this video was useful for you, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you'd like to see other videos like it, in particular things about having a career in the high-tech world. I'd love to hear what other people who work in high-tech think about the things that I've said here. Do they make sense? Do they mesh with your experience, or do you have other recommendations for people? Please put all this in the comments down below. I love reading these things, and I will respond to all the ones that I can. Thank you, and keep on pushing forward.